Coming up, we visit with an award-winning classical guitarist. And ready or not, we're taking you to one of the largest Indigenous singing and dancing competitions in the country. Plus, a South Dakota state lawmaker tells us some of the challenges they face when passing new legislation. I am Aaliyah Chavez. Join us for those interviews, plus headlines from the ICT Newscast.
The Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication at Arizona State University is a proud supporter of Indian Country Today. Students at Cronkite News and Gaylord College at the University of Oklahoma cover Indigenous communities together. This important work is distributed by more than 100 news organizations. This collaboration provides a much-needed boost to coverage of Native American communities nationwide. Learn more at cronkitenews.azpbs.org.
This is the ICT Newscast with Aaliyah Chavez.
Amirawa Hopa, thank you for joining us. The Congressman for All Alaska, that was the description hailed by tribal leaders of the late Representative Don Young. Young died last week at age 88. He was the current Dean of the U.S. House of Representatives and the longest-serving Republican in the history of Congress. In Indian country, people remembered him for his advocacy. Chickasaw Representative Tom Cole said, quote, "No one in the House did more to advance the cause of Indigenous peoples." The National Congress of American Indians called Young one of Indian country's staunchest and longest-standing allies.
We believe his last public appearance was at our Executive Council winter session, and he just so passionately, courageously stood with tribal nations, and he made sure that others understood and respected tribal sovereignty and honored who we were. That love, admiration, and respect was mutual, and he was a champion that we could count on to advance tribal sovereignty, and he understood us.
In 2006, Tlingit advocate Diane Benson ran against Young as a Democrat. She spoke to ICT about what his death will mean as a vacancy in Congress.
So that's what, to me, is the greatest threat to now having his seat open, is what are we going to get, particularly for the Alaska Native community? What is that going to mean for us?
Young served as the vice chair of the Congressional Native Caucus. His first wife, Lula, was Alaska Native, as well as his daughters and grandchildren. According to a statement from his office, Young died while traveling to Alaska, and no other details have been released at this time. Charting a new direction, that was the theme of this weekend's meeting for tribal leaders from the National Congress of American Indians. ICT's managing editor, Dalton Walker, reports.
Over the weekend in the Gila River Indian community, the executive committee from the National Congress of American Indians gathered. The strategic planning retreat was the first time they met since the start of the pandemic. Part of that planning was highlighted by NCAI President Vaughn Sharp.
Yes, what we hope to accomplish is to be able to connect to all of Indian country to continue to chart that direction. This was an opening conversation for the board, but we know that we are in a post-self-determination era. So we want to really define that era of empowerment, of truth, of healing.
Some members of the executive committee met before sunrise, away from the resort and near a walking trail to reflect on the first day of spring. The governor of the Gila River Indian community was recently elected as NCAI's recording secretary.
So it was really an opportunity for the staff and for the leadership of NCAI to come together in person. Very powerful, very emotional for all of us to come together.
Sharp says she will work towards unifying Indian country.
When there's an attack on tribal sovereignty, we have to be able to respond to that unapologetically and aggressively, and unleash the voice of all of Indian country, unify the voice of Indian country to confront it. That's a core mission of NCAI.
In Chandler, Arizona, Dalton Walker, ICT Newscast.
For the first time, the city of Denver is giving some of its surplus bison to 3 tribal entities. On Monday, 33 bison were gifted to the Northern Arapaho tribe in Wyoming, the Southern Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes in Oklahoma, and the Tall Bull Memorial Council in Colorado. The animals came from the city's own conservation herd. In the past, surplus bison were auctioned off. All parties are calling this gift a, quote, real show of allyship to tribal sovereignty. Jason Valdez is the Tribal Buffalo Program Manager for the National Wildlife Federation. He was one of the parties that organized this transfer.
It's kind of a way the city of Denver can honor, reconcile some of the past by ensuring that those animals go to those tribes. So half will go south to Oklahoma to the Cheyenne and Arapaho, and then half of those animals will go to Wind River for the Northern Arapaho tribe.
All of the tribes who received bison have historical ties to what is now Colorado, and the animals will allow the tribes to ensure a diverse genetic pool for the bison herds. And those are the headlines for the ICT Newscast. Coming up, a Native lawmaker is fighting to fund an investigator for missing and murdered Indigenous people in South Dakota. Plus, music and a recap of the Denver March Powwow. Stay with us. Puri Poyer has been a member of the South Dakota House of Representatives since 2019, from proposing the creation of a commission on Indian affairs to protections for child-age court case witnesses. The lawmaker has had her hands full. Hello, Representative Poyer. Great to see you.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I'm honored.
So I want to start first with this investigator position that'll investigate cases of missing and murdered Indigenous people. I know there's been some back and forth with that position. Tell us where we're at.
Well, we have great news to report that it has been included in the general budget for the South Dakota appropriations. The bill was originally supposed to be budgeted as such, and we kept the conversation going by putting my own appropriations bill, just because of the back and forth that happened in the media. Unfortunately, politics is the nature of the beast, but we kept the conversations going, and we're proud that Governor Kristi Noem has taken it a part of her platform, and she's fully endorsed the idea and fully funded the position. And that position will be funded forever. So it is a good news.
And how soon will that position and that investigator actually be able to get started with their work?
Normally when bills get passed within the legislature, it's July 1st. So we put it in the general budget. And so the importance of it being a part of the general budget, it's ongoing. It'll be funded, like I said, forever. So we those always come into effect in July 1. So we're excited to see who would be best to launch such a first-time office for the state of South Dakota. So it's exciting, but there's a lot of hard work in front of us.
I actually want to talk more about that hard work because this position would actually be one person for the entire state of South Dakota. If you're looking 10 years into the future, 20 years, where do you hope that this position is at and the kinds of goals that it would have reached by then?
Well, as we are a part of Indian country, and oftentimes that we have to create our own change that we want to see, we have to start from the bottom and work our way up. So I applaud all the grassroots activists who brought this to the awareness. And now the legislators have seen that this is an issue that deserves reasonable solutions. So that person who will be in that position, yes, it's one person, but they'll be working under the Attorney General's office, one of the most powerful offices in the state of South Dakota. and they will have the duty to grow that office, and it can grow. You have 9 tribal nations within the state of South Dakota, and you have a lot of different jurisdictions to maneuver. And that person would have to be very hands-on, smart, on their feet, and know that in Indian country, you have to work 10 times hard to get anything going, to make any ground and headway. But this is a start. Change, unfortunately, doesn't happen in one big swoop. We don't wake up to change. We have to chip away, and we have to play the long game and just be consistent at working away at it.
The other story that we've been reporting and following has been these community schools that would teach culture and language. Tell us about those and why it's important to have them, and sort of where that stands in terms of how viable it would be to make these community schools happen.
Well, whenever you look at the reading, the math levels, reading comprehension, when you look at the data and statistics across South Dakota, Natives have a low, disproportionately low graduation level. Math and reading levels are extremely low, and it's not anything to be, proud of. But we have children that we're very proud of, and sometimes they just need to have the ability and the space to be themselves. Oftentimes when we go into institutions, across the United States, Natives have to kind of sanitize themselves in order to be successful. They have to, dial down who they are in order to fit into some narrative that you have to look white to be successful. You have to act white, speak white in order to be successful. And whenever you take a young person and you put their identity into, and you teach who they are and where they come from, you create resiliency. So whenever the challenges that do come, whenever they grow up and they face in their teenagers, like we all went through our teenage years, we have peer pressure. We have all these different challenges that Native children face. They have that resiliency that they could tap into, and they could say, this is not who I am. This is, I am Lakota Malakota. So that is a part of putting it into the school systems. And really having an institution that really acknowledges and appreciates Native children the way they should be, creating that Yoshpae, our families, is our powerhouse. And whenever you look at your teacher as your auntie, as you look at your coaches as your uncle, and they treat you such, and they have that care and concern, and they speak the same way that which you would understand, that speaks volumes for children. They're more apt to learn. They're getting all their needs met. So they're able to be more successful, and they could avoid the pitfalls and the challenges that they face when they grow up. Our incarceration rates for Native population is through the roof. Again, another disproportionate rate across the state. So instead of looking at increasing prisons or increasing welfare or increasing alcohol treatment centers and all these different ways that we treat problems after they occur. And this is the Oceti Shakoi Community Schools was about Natives coming together, subject matter experts in Indian education coming together with a solution ahead, and saying, let's prevent all this from happening, and let's do it the best way we know how. Indian country often forgets the Indian in education.
We only have about a minute left, but would you say that one of your goals in your tenure as a state lawmaker is going to be to fund these community schools?
Absolutely. Whenever I ran originally, I wanted to build, empower, and progress. And a lot of that has to do with educating the lawmakers. That is absolutely my goal, but there's a lot of education going on of why we have these statistics that we have, why do we face these odds, and what are the solutions to them? Because right now, white society does not have those solutions, and they fail across the board. And I'm not trying to bring race into it, but it's just a matter of having the conversation of how do we look at problems?
Well, Representative Poyer, thank you so much for being here. We've appreciated having you.
Thank you so much. It's an honor.
Best Instrumental CD, Best World Music, and Artist of the Year are some of the awards Gabriel Ayala has earned from the Native American Music Awards over his career. Gabriel performs diverse genres of music such as classical, jazz, flamenco, and tango. He also performs jazzmenco, which is his original genre. And he joins us today to share more about his musical journey. Hello, Gabriel, and thank you for joining us today.
Yes, Yosem Chenyao, and then po Gabriel Ayala Tea, and then po in Pascuayaki Pueblo po in Tucson, Arizona po. So good day to everyone out there in Indian country.
Well, thank you so much. I want to just jump right in. Tell us what got you started in your musical journey. Where did you pick this up from?
So I was raised by my grandmother, and from a young age, my grandmother started just getting me different musical instruments. And I just was attached to everything. But it wasn't until I was about the age of 15 or so that I got my first guitar, and it just kind of changed my DNA. And after that, that's all that I wanted to play. I practiced anywhere from like 12 to 14 hours a day. I tell people that was my only addiction in life. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I've never touched drugs. So for me, I use this instrument and this platform to talk about what we can do as Indigenous people, especially aimed at our youth, in finding a positive addiction.
Great. I actually want to talk about how you entered into this industry, because you did it at a time when it wasn't like super popular for Native musicians to enter the music industry. What was that like for you?
Oh, it was extremely difficult. You have to see that you're a minority amongst a minority. And the fact that I was going into classical music was even that much harder. I got tons of doors slammed on my face, but the ones that opened up were the right ones, is the way I viewed it. Again, through perseverance and never giving up is the reason I'm still here today, still playing music and doing what I love to do. And again, everything that I do, I try to aim it towards our youth and let them know they're bound for greatness as they believe in themselves, and that the Creator gave them whatever talent it is they have to better themselves and our communities. So that's really what I'm trying to do.
So much of your message has been to sort of bring together music and culture for the youth, as you just said. How do you think those two ideas complement each other?
You know, it's trying to infuse our traditional teachings within the music. So when I write music, I don't just pick up the guitar and write a song. I actually, so for my tribe, our ceremonies, I'm a traditional ceremonial singer. So a lot of times I'll just sing melodies and record them on my phone and then teach them to myself later on the guitar. And I share that with our youth of how we can incorporate that. And we don't have to lose those traditional ways and values that we have. And for me, it just works.
And I understand you might have a guitar there somewhere very close to you. Is there anything you'd like to play for us today?
Oh, wow. Where'd this come from? Yes. So give you maybe like a minute or something so that we don't waste all our interviewers?
Sure. Yes.
All right, here we go.
What a blessing. Thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you.
I want to actually talk about the places around the world that you've been able to travel because of the guitar in your hand and because of the music talent that you have. Tell us some of the places that you've been to.
Yeah, I tell people I've lived the life of 100 men. I've traveled all over. I've been very, very fortunate from all over South America, all over the United States, all over Indian country. Also, I've been to Germany, France, got to play for the Pope in Italy, which wasn't too bad, not a bad gig. It's kind of weird to talk and kind of boast about yourself because that's not our traditional ways. But all I'll say is if you want to know more about me, you can look me up on the internet and there's all kinds of stuff about me. But again, I've been very blessed, very thankful.
Do you have any particular project or place that you've been, any thing that you've worked on that has been your favorite?
That's a tough thing. It's like saying, what's your favorite song? You know, they're all there. There's a connection with everything with us, especially as Indigenous people, but performing for our people, it really gives me a lot of joy. Especially when you see their faces looking back at you and the actual pride that they feel that you have no idea who each other are, but you have relatives coming up to you and saying, I'm so proud of you, nephew. I'm so proud of you, grandson, or brother, I love your music. That's the reason I play music. Not because I thought I was going to be a millionaire. If I wanted to be a millionaire, I should have been a doctor or a lawyer or something else. But I believe the Creator put this gift in my hands to be able to share music. And that's why I do it, because it's a healing.
Let's actually talk more about that. I understand that you have a philosophy, and I'm going to read it here so I don't mess it up. You say, love your children, honor your elders, and respect your women. Tell us what that means to you.
It's everything. It's my mantra. It's what I live by. I said it once at a concert, at the end of a concert, and I just stopped in my tracks and I said, wow, that's really, truly what I believe. You know, love, honor, and respect. Our children are sacred. You know, they're just so innocent, and it's our job to take care of them, regardless of our direct blood or not, whether it's our nieces or not. We should take care of them. And honoring our elders for all that they've done, for all that they continue to give. And the biggest one for me is always the respect for women. I mean, women are truly the most sacred beings on this earth. They are givers of life. And it's unfortunate that we don't revere them as that anymore. It's hurtful. But coming from an upbringing of being raised by a woman, I connect with that so much. And I reach out to people and tell them and share with them how important it really truly is to honor and respect our women.
Well, Gabriel, thank you so much. I've loved this conversation.
I appreciate your time and thank you so much. It was an honor to be here. Choko Tesia to everybody out there.
After a 2-year hiatus brought on by the pandemic, a major annual event returned with a big bang last weekend. Stuart Huntington has more from the Denver March Powwow.
Often called the traditional kickoff for the powwow season, the Denver March event has been a mainstay since its inception 46 years ago. But COVID kept the doors closed for 2 seasons, so this year, when the powwow returned to the Denver Coliseum, it brought lots of smiles.
After COVID, it's definitely a good feeling to be back.
It's fun.
Definitely excited to be back.
It is so thrilling. I'm so happy to be back.
It's exciting. After 2 years, it feels like forever. There's like a long pause. And sometimes I wonder what happened to those 2 years. But now being back over here, watching all the people here, listening to the drum on the inside, the heartbeat is continuing. So it's good to be back.
The Coliseum was packed with vendors, drummers, singers, and dancers, all swimming in rich culture, bringing people back together.
This is the first celebration that we've had that we can all come together and sing and dance and heal and reconnect in the past 2 years.
It's a very great, momentous occasion that for 2 years we've been pretty much locked in our residences and very limited on our activities. This allows people to become social, and we are social people, so it is an amazing opportunity to interact and enjoy and be alive.
In Denver, Colorado, this is Stuart Huntington for ICT.
And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. For more news, visit IndianCountryToday.com. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives. I am Aaliyah Chavez.
Sometimes you got to take a stand just because you know you can. Oh, you got to run, you got to run.